Hi, everybody. This is Jordan Sanders. I'm an advisor at Mountain Springs Preparatory Academy, and I'm going to be talking about self-care today. And the reason I decided to do this topic is because being part of this industry, it's been a really important piece of me being a more effective advisor in my job. And I know that it's also very important to use self-care in order to just be an effective and happy person. And so that's the reason, I guess, why the title is Love. It's a personal thing because loving oneself is a personal thing. It's something that each of us need to do in order to be able to love and help other people better as well. And especially while you parents are in this process of being in this treatment world, which is kind of a whole new animal, it's really important to be able to use self-care to be healthy and happy, and especially so that you are better to help um, your child in this time of need also, because it's really stressful for them as well. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about self-esteem and self-worth, and about what it means to really take care of yourself, because it's kind of a taboo thing. People think it's a little bit selfish to spend time taking care of oneself, but it's an important thing in life. And for instance, if you're really listening to what your body, mind, and heart need, if your body's telling you that you've been sitting down for too long and you need to stand up and stretch, do it. That's okay. If your heart is longing to spend more time with family or friends that you haven't seen in a long time, do it. If your mind's telling you to clean up your office space or your basement, or listen to your favorite music, or stop thinking negative thoughts, listen to those thoughts, take those thoughts seriously, because there's a reason you're feeling those things. And it's important to self-validate and to spend some time taking care of yourself. So before I get into more ways of taking care of yourself, I want to talk about some of the reasons behind why self-care is so important, and what leads us to need self-care. And obviously, one of those things that makes us need self-care is just stress. Each and every one of us has stress. Life is stressful, and our stress comes from a lot of different areas, whether it's work, needing to meet a certain quota, or whether we're an entrepreneur and we need to make a certain amount of sales in our business in order to be successful and be able to pay the next thing that is stressful, which are bills, obviously. We spend a lot of time worrying about bills because the money that we earn is hard-earned money a lot of the time, and it's hard to let go of that sometimes, and to pay our insurance, and to pay our car payment and our mortgage and all that good stuff. It's a stressful thing. Um, as are having children. Children are stressful. They have a lot of demands, and a lot of times they're not very good at taking care of themselves, and so it lands on us to help to take care of them, and that can be really stressful. They have a lot of uh, demand a lot of attention, demand a lot of time, and it's hard to do that all the time, and it can take a toll on you. This also goes for relationships, whether that's within our family, whether that's a romantic relationship, or whether that's just building relationships with our coworkers. All these things take a toll on you, and they build up over time, and these stressors can build up and really wreak havoc on your body. And the last one I obviously want to touch on is having kids in treatment. This is a tough process. It's not something that we can just get through easily. It's something that needs a lot of support, and a lot of attention, and a lot of care. And it's okay to ask for help in these situations. But with all these things going on in our lives, and with all the stress happening, I want to use a few metaphors today. And one of those is comparing ourselves to an engine in a car, right? Now, as we all know, it's important to change the oil in a car. or else we end up with a ruined engine, right? The more mileage you put on, the lower your oil life is in your car. And so I wanted to use that as a metaphor for a little while here. And I have a visual to kind of help with that, right? So I guess my question is, are we a well-oiled machine or are we a sludge monster? Now that's a pretty nasty looking engine, and it's one that has obviously not been well taken care of, and it's gone a while without an oil change, right? Now, cars need oil changes about every 3,000 miles to keep them running well and to get that sludge out of the engine. We have to clean out the filter, we have to change the oil to get all that grime and that grit out of the engine so that our engine can work well. Obviously, this is a rhetorical question, but would you drive your car if your oil was this thick and grimy? I really hope not, because if you did, you'd probably be needing to change your engine soon. Changing your oil only costs somewhere between $30 and $50 each time. But if you wait long enough and your uh, engine burns up, then you're talking about thousands of dollars in repair. And it's the same with us. If we go too long without changing our oil, without taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves some self-care, we're bound to become more irritable. We're bound to become more stressed out, and that's going to feed into other parts in our lives, and it's going to cause strains in our relationships. It's going to cause difficulty at work. It's going to cause overwhelm, a lot of different things that are not helpful or healthy for us. That being said, I actually have a video that I wanted to show that shows some of the effects of stress on us over time. So I'm going to slide over and have us watch this video, which I think is really helpful. So let me get that started here real quick.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news, though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
All right, so that's actually a really meaningful and helpful video in a lot of ways because, as I mentioned, stress takes a toll, and it's important to be aware of that so that it doesn't overtake our lives and make it difficult for us to reverse some of the effects of that stress. Because, as I said, with more nurturing, the pups and everything, we're able to kind of overcome some of the effects of that negligence and things like that. And obviously with meditation and exercise, we can reverse some of the effects of stress on ourselves as well. But it's an important thing to be aware of and to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, because if we don't, it's going to take a toll. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the effects that stress can have on us. And I have examples of physical things that it will do to us, as well as some mental and emotional things. So what are some of the physical symptoms of stress? Well, we can have headaches, we can experience fatigue, we can even have some muscle aches and pains, as well as chest pain, insomnia, upset stomach. A lot of these physical symptoms can happen, and it's really interesting because at Mountain Springs, we work with a variety of different students, and some of them have high anxiety, and a lot of times they have psychosomatic things going on where they think that they are sick, but the truth of the matter is they're just stressed out. They have all this anxiety, and they start to feel these different physical symptoms. And so being able to be aware of those things and to practice some mindfulness and to do some exercise really helps with these physical symptoms. So some of the emotional and mental, emotional and mental symptoms that we have can include anxiety, depression, loss of motivation, overwhelm, social withdrawal, and some irritability. So these are some really important things because anxiety is something that is really an epidemic at this time, in the world. And a lot of this, I'm not going to go super into detail on this, but a lot of this does have to do with just how much information our bodies and minds are taking in nowadays, especially with the introduction of smartphones and social media. We're just more stressed out. People are just chronically more stressed out, more anxious than they have been ever in the history of the world. And so it's really important to pay attention to our bodies and our minds and what they're telling us. And if we're feeling stressed out, it's important to take some steps to change that. Because like it said in that video, if we don't take care of the stress levels, they can lead to more severe things like depression. And on the video, it actually even said eventually Alzheimer's. And I don't know the science that backs that up, but it's a scary thing. It's something that we really need to be aware of and to strive to counteract by doing some of these self-care things. So the other metaphor that I wanted to use leads me to my next slide here, which is actually a concept that is written in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a book by Stephen R. Covey. It's a fantastic book. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. But this concept is all about taking a little bit of time to sharpen the saw. And I have a video that explains that a little bit better and it's a little more entertaining than just me rambling on about it. So let's go ahead and uh, take a look at that video and I will talk about it afterward. So let me get that pulled up real quick and we'll go from there.
Sharpen the Saw is one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, outlined by author Stephen R. Covey. Sharpen the saw means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. If you want a tool to last long, you've got to take care of it. The importance of sharpening your saw is beautifully illustrated in this story. It was the annual lumberjack competition, and the final was between 2 lumberjacks. One was an older, experienced lumberjack, and the other was a younger, stronger lumberjack. The rule of the competition was quite simply who could fell the most trees in a day was the winner. The younger lumberjack was full of enthusiasm and went off into the woods and set to work straight away. He worked all through the day and all through the night. As he worked, he could hear the older lumberjack working in another part of the forest, and he felt more and more confident with every tree he felled that he would win. At regular intervals throughout the day, the noise of trees being felled coming from the other part of the forest would stop. The younger lumberjack took heart, knowing that this meant the older lumberjack was taking a rest, whereas he could use his superior youth and strength and stamina to keep going. At the end of the competition, the younger lumberjack felt confident he had won. He looked in front of him at the piles of felled trees that were the result of his superhuman effort. At the medal ceremony, the young lumberjack stood on the podium, confident and expecting to be awarded the prize of champion lumberjack. Next to him stood the older lumberjack, who looked surprisingly less exhausted than the younger lumberjack felt. When the results were read out, the young lumberjack was devastated to hear that the older lumberjack had chopped down significantly more trees than he had. He turned to the older lumberjack and said, "How can this be? I heard you take a rest every hour, and I worked continuously through the night. What's more, I'm younger and stronger and fitter than you, old man." The older lumberjack turned to him and said, "Every hour I took a break to rest and sharpen my saw." At its surface, there are a lot of things to take away from this story. A sharp saw is more effective. Choose your tools wisely. Why struggle with a blunt saw? Perhaps it is wise to take time to sharpen it. If you don't know how to use a tool, learn. When we work more effectively, we get more done. Stop doing things that don't work. Rest is just as important as hard work. A rested worker is a good worker. A tired worker is a poor worker. This story is really relevant to me, and I would imagine to a lot of new teachers. We get frustrated by life and our inability to cope with things in the classroom. But instead of developing ourselves and taking the time to become more effective, we keep struggling with a blunt saw. Being at work doesn't always mean you're working. Grading a test doesn't always mean you're giving feedback. Talking to someone doesn't always mean you're connecting with them. Don't confuse activity with action. Taking a break does not always mean you're resting. Feeling good doesn't just happen. Living a life in balance means taking the necessary time to renew yourself. It's all up to you. You can renew yourself through relaxation. Or you can totally burn yourself out by overdoing everything. You can pamper yourself mentally and spiritually, or you can go through life oblivious to your well-being. You can experience vibrant energy, or you can procrastinate and miss out on the benefits of good health and exercise. You can revitalize yourself and face a new day in peace and harmony, or you can wake up in the morning full of apathy because you gear up, your go is gone. You got no get up and go. Just remember that every day provides a new opportunity for renewal, a new opportunity to recharge yourself instead of hitting the wall. We can't delegate this task of sharpening the saw to others. Diet, exercise, rest. No one else, not the most well-meaning partner, not your parents, not your friends, no one else can take on this role in our behalf. We have to build these into our routine, or it doesn't happen. When you take time to sharpen your saw, you increase your capacity to produce, and you increase your capacity to handle the challenges around you. But without this renewal, the body becomes weak, the mind mechanical, the emotions raw, spirit insensitive, and the person selfish. Not a pretty picture, is it? One class, one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 semester, 1 year in a classroom is a marathon. And the rest is as important as the work. Remember, you're the most important tool in your classroom. You must take care of yourself in order to take care of others. So let's keep our physical, social, mental, and spiritual tools sharp. If you don't want to listen to me, take some advice from America's greatest president, Abraham Lincoln. He said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe."
All right, so obviously that video was directed toward teachers, but the concept is the same, and that is that we need to take time to sharpen our saw in order to be effective, in order to be able to, take down all those trees and be wise like the older lumberjack was, right? So I guess, the question can be asked, what do we do to sharpen our saw? I mean, in that video, he expressed a few different things we can do, but I'd like to talk about a few more than that. So here are a list of things that we can do to sharpen our saw, which really means spending some time doing some self-care so that we can be effective and happy in our lives and be more effective and happy in our relationships as well. One of the biggest things that we can do, and one of the most important, is to do exercise, right? Exercise is extremely important. And the reason for that is, well, there's a lot of different reasons for it. It releases endorphins. It relieves stress by just kind of getting those emotions out, and getting our body doing something different, which will help us to let go of some of those emotions and some of those things that we're feeling. And also, it can be as simple as even just taking a walk, or walking up and down your stairs, or playing a sport with a friend or family member. It can be anything really. Anything simple, as long as we get our body moving and help get the blood pumping. That's the important piece of it. Another really important piece that was already talked about in that first video was meditation. And I actually wanted to really quickly walk through something that is called like mindful walking. And this is a tool that you can use that kind of combines the exercise with the meditation. So if you have a pen and paper or something to write down with, or if you just want to basically pay attention to me walking through what it's like to do a mindful walking session, then just hang tight. I'm going to explain basically what that looks like. So, most of the time when people are walking from point A to point B, they have a purpose. They're trying to get there as fast as they can. They're not really paying attention to what's around them, right? Mindful walking is not that at all. What mindful walking is you do it meaningfully, you do it mindfully, and you have to start by pausing. You don't just jump out the door and start walking. This is a very deliberate kind of walking. So you pause before you start, and you notice the feeling of your air going in and out of your nose, or going in your nose and your lungs, and your exhales as well. And breathe quietly and do that for 4 or 5 breaths, so you really get a sense of your breathing. After that, you begin walking, and as you do so, notice the sensations in your leg muscles, your ankles, your calves, your thighs, and spend a minute or two focusing only on those muscles and how they feel. After you spend some time doing that, if you notice any troubling thoughts trying to intrude, just notice them and acknowledge that they're there, but then watch them like clouds floating overhead and just watch them float away. Don't judge them, but refocus on your muscles and how they're feeling in your legs. Now, after you've done that for a while, feel the bottom of your feet as they strike the ground. Try to notice how the heels hit first, then the foot rolls, and then you push off with the ball of your foot and toes. Concentrate on that for a minute or two. As you've done that, bring yourself back to the present, and if you have troubling thoughts again, just let them be there. Acknowledge them, don't judge them, and refocus on the way your feet are striking the ground. Then you can focus on the rhythm of your walking. Feel the pace of your legs and the swing of your arms, and stay with that rhythm for a while and enjoy it. Just notice how it works, and notice your stride. As you've done that for a while, refocus again on the air flowing into your nose and lungs, and then exhaling the air, and take notice of the rhythm of your breathing as you're walking as well. And focus on nothing else for a minute or two. Now, as you've done all of that, try to take heed of all of it. Try to take heed of how your feet strike the floor, how your muscles move in your legs, the rhythm of your breathing, and continue to just kind of shift your attention from one to the other as you wish for the length of your walk. So that's what mindful walking looks like. Obviously, I didn't expect you to do that while you were watching this presentation, but take note of those things and practice it. Give it a shot. On top of mindful walking, there's also mindful eating, which is kind of a weird thing to do if you're eating dinner with your family or with friends or something, because it really does take a while, and it's spending time noticing the smell and the taste of the foods and the texture. When you take a bite, first you smell it, and then you put it in your mouth and feel how it feels on your tongue, and as you chew it, notice the way the texture changes, and notice the way it goes down your throat when you swallow. That's mindful eating. So if you want to try a couple of those different things, go for it. Meditation in general is just a really helpful tool, because it really makes you aware of your surroundings. It makes you mindful of yourself and your thoughts and your feelings, and it can help you to relieve some of that stress and to really recognize what's going on instead of being so caught up in the moment, and allowing those overwhelming emotions and stressors to take over. If you even type in, the search bar of the internet, just free meditation exercises, you can get tons of free meditation. And so whatever you choose to do, I would just suggest to find something that works for you and to do it, and to do it regularly, so that you can relieve some of that stress that's been building up. Another thing you can do is to do something that you enjoy. I'll give you an example of something in my life that's been really helpful in sharpening my saw. And what that is music. I've been a musician most of my life, and it's something I enjoy immensely. And I, for a while, didn't spend much time doing it. I thought it was a waste of time. I thought I was not being effective in my life because I was trying to do something that I enjoyed and it was taking time away from me doing other work and things like that, and something I noticed was that over time, I started to become unhappy and I didn't feel as fulfilled in my life. And I was wondering what it was coming from, and eventually I finally narrowed it down to the fact that I wasn't doing my music the way that I used to. And so I got involved in a couple of rock bands, which has been a huge help in my life and it's made me much happier. And just the act of, practicing with them, practicing on my own, having something that I'm working toward and something I enjoy makes my life so much more fulfilled and so much happier. So find something that you enjoy, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's cooking, whether it's going to the gym or reading, whatever it may be. Find something that you enjoy and spend some time doing it because you're worth it. And it will be worth it because you'll be a much happier person and the relationships in your life will get better as you take better care of yourself. So it may feel selfish at the time, but really you're actually thinking out for other people as well because if you are a happier person, your relationship with others will be better as well. Eating healthy foods is another thing that's really important. And this isn't something that you can just do in one day and expect it to be different. This is something that you need to do over time. But the more healthy you eat, the better your body will function, and which will then help to elevate your mood and relieve some stress. And I am also an advocate for, on occasion, eating something that you enjoy as well. Chocolate has been shown to release endorphins as well, and it's a good coping mechanism. Obviously, if it's becoming a problem, then evaluate that and change it as needed. But there are ways to also feel good by eating something that makes you feel good too, and that's okay. Um, Setting healthy boundaries with others is a really important one as well. And I feel like in today's world, it's a lot more difficult to do this sometimes because we're always connected. We have smartphones, we have our email with us wherever we go, so it's hard to kind of get away for a while. But something that my supervisor told me when I was first starting as an advisor at Mountain Springs is that it's so important to set healthy boundaries with other people and to take time off to have your work life and then to have your personal life. And it's important to have a distinction between the two. And so something that I've had to work on is setting healthy boundaries with other people. I upfront tell people, hey, my office hours are between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. If you need something, try to find me between those hours. I mean, obviously, if an emergency comes up or something, that's different. But if it's normal day-to-day things that I can answer the next day, then I will do that. Because in order for me to be an effective advisor and to be able to help coach people and to work with people to the best of my ability, I need to be healthy and happy as well. If I don't take that time, I become angry and irritable, and I don't do my job very well because my patience with people is a lot shorter. And so I found that it's really important for me to set healthy boundaries with other people. And the same can be true with your children too. Um, Sometimes it's okay to tell them that you need 5 minutes to, collect yourself, to just kind of de-stress, maybe go on a walk for a minute. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's okay. And in fact, you'll be a more effective parent and just a happier parent by doing that. And I think your kids will be able to recognize that. So it's okay to set some of those healthy boundaries with the people. Um, on going along with that, taking time off is really important. Um, Although it's super cool and it's looked highly upon to have so many days off that are just kind of racking up. It's okay to take a vacation. Use the paid time off that you have if you have paid time off. If you don't have paid time off, find a way to find a few days off when you can, because it's really important for you to be your most effective self by taking the time off that you need to rest and recuperate. And again, all these things that we've talked about today, these things are not selfish, they're healthy. They're helpful for you to be the effective person, to be the happy person that you need to be. Self-love is really important, because if you can't love yourself, you can't expect to love other people. It really needs to start with you. So please take the time to do these things, to sharpen your saw and to become the people that you're meant to be. I hope that you guys have found some meaning in these different things that we've gone over today, and I hope that you're able to spend some time loving yourself, and that as you do so, you find happiness and success in your lives, and that you're able to better validate yourselves, better validate your children, better validate your partners, whoever they may be, and that you find more meaning and happiness in your life. Thank you so much for taking some time to watch this webinar, and um, go take care of yourselves. And thank you for your time, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much.